Hello, we're going to talk a little bit more about outboard turning, and we're going to do some outboard turning. Different lathe manufacturers have different approaches to how they do outboard turning. Some lathes are not equipped for it at all, but if you watched the earlier video, we had a jet that allowed us, like this Grizzly, to just slide the headstock, sometimes not very easily, clear to the end of the lathe and work off the tail of the lathe. In my shop, I've got the tail up against the wall and the lathe's bolted down, so I don't use it that way. Other lathes, like this Oliver here, it's kind of hard to see. It's up against the wall too. I don't do outboard turning on it, but it's got a faceplate on the back and threads on the back of the lathe here. Now, the threads on the back on this lathe are left-hand threads. That's because it is non-reversible, and when you cut, you don't want to try to remove your faceplate or whatever attachment you have. So you're with a lathe of this setup, you're forced to buy left-hand thread attachments. There are also some manufacturers that have threads on the back of their headstock with right-handed threads. If it's a reversible lathe, all you do is you do your outboard turning with in reverse, and the right-handed threads will tighten up. So that a lot of advantage to that as far as chucks and inserts and faceplates. This Grizzly, you can see I've got a sanding pad on here. Recently I made a bunch of magic wands, and after I parted them off from the lathe, I would just sand the ends of them, and I mean that works fine. But the Grizzly gives you an option of loosening this up, and then it allows you to turn the headstock. I'm going to pull it back towards the end here a little bit, and it's got a detent for every 45 degrees, so I could work like this, and now I'm not leaning over the bed anymore, and I can easily work like this, change my pad, and go right through the grits. So it works real nice for sanding. And remember that outboard turning most people initially or immediately think of huge turnings that won't fit over the bed. There's other reasons to use it. Some of it's just convenience, like this. So we're going to turn this a little bit further. First, I'm going to take out the chuck. Just kind of keeping an eye on my cord. I don't want to stretch it too much. Okay, I think I've got it too far back. There we go. There. Okay, I'm going to move this way a little bit. On the Grizzly, they have a special tool rest. Okay, on the Grizzly, to do outboard turning like we're going to here, you have to remove the banjo, which just thread the nut off the bottom here. And reinstall it here. Okay, we don't need this on at the moment. Grizzly has an articulated tool rest, and that's how they have these approach the outboard turning end of it. There are lathe manufacturers that have a couple bolts and an attachment that goes on to the lathe. And I think it's the Nova has a lowered bed that sticks out the end of the lathe. So we're going to put this on. Okay, get it adjusted to where it tightens up. And this is what the tool rest looks like. It goes in here. And you put your tool rest out here, and you can adjust it to whatever position you need. I said earlier about just because you're doing outboard turning doesn't mean you have to have a huge piece. The first piece we're going to do today is just a bowl, smaller bowl. We could easily do this over the ways, but sometimes it's easier to turn the inside of a bowl outboard. Okay, that looks good. And as you can see, you can move this, position this just about anywhere you want to. And let's see. And now we're turning free of leaning over the bed. Don't have to worry about hitting the tool handle into the tailstock. And if you wanted to do the outside, you can just swing your tool rest around here like this. Whoops. Let me swing it around the other side. Now, if you didn't have as many lathes as I do, you wouldn't have this problem. But you can see how we can easily do the outside of the lathe, or outside of the bowl here. I'm going to clean up a little more in the rim here, and then I'll go back to the inside. think you can see how in some ways it's more convenient for me to be standing here to do the bowl than leaning over the lathe working from the inside. You can never check your thickness too often. So, I know a lot of people use digital calipers or dowel calipers, whatever. Very few people that receive a bowl are going to measure it with a pair of dowel calipers. If you can't feel the variation with your fingers, probably okay. Okay, I'm going to work my way on down towards the bottom. I'm going to reverse chuck this and blend this in, take the tenon off when I'm done. So I'm trying to get the constant wall thickness through here, and probably start making it a little thicker when I get down about this far. Okay, we're getting a little more vibration than you would if your tool rest was right here. That's because of this cantilever. I don't know if you can see it vibrating there and moving. I've never had one break, and I don't know of anybody that did, but I can imagine that if you had a really bad catch, this could cause a problem. Let me do a little bit more here. Now the tool I'm using here for this part of the turning is a Henry Taylor bowl gouge, and it's ground swept back like that. Okay, and I have the bevel just barely touching the bowl as I go in, and it's open approximately 45 degrees. And if you noticed, I did part way down the inside. Now I'm working on the next section, trying to blend the two in. This blank has been drying for several months. When we mounted it, was probably 3/4, 7/8 of an inch thick. And I keep checking to make sure my wall thickness is about the same, and I'm ready to go across the bottom. As I run my fingers across there, I can feel a little bit of a high spot right here. Try to get that out. And sometimes if you feel a little bit of a high spot, you can just take your pencil and mark where it is. Okay. There's a few lines in there, but they will sand right out, and feeling it feels pretty good. To finish this bowl, I would first sand the inside, and then I'd reverse chuck it either in a jam chuck or with a vacuum chuck and finish the outside. Right now I'm pretty happy with the way the inside is. I'm just going to let it go at that, and we'll go on to something else.
All right.
If your lathe doesn't have the tool rest, the articulated tool rest, or a way to attach an auxiliary tool rest to the end, you may want to get a freestanding tool rest. This can be used in any of the different applications we talked about. And you see this one just uses a screw to attach the tool post to it. And since we've already finished the inside of this bowl, I'll probably put something else on, but it's pretty easy to see how this would work. Let's put a different blank on there, and we'll try it out. Okay, what we're going to mount now is this platter. I started it a while ago, and I guess kind of lost interest, but to mount it, I've glued a waste block on the back and drilled it with, I'm pretty sure that's a 1/4-inch hole, in order to mount it on a Glazier screw chuck. That's what this is here. These are really nice chucks. This piece here will reverse, come completely off for different sizes of mounting. I'm going to use it just like it is there, and it's just a simple matter of threading it on. One thing that I'm not impressed with the Grizzly is there's no spindle lock, so we have to use the wrench for this type of work. Okay, it's fairly tight. Going to put our auxiliary stand in place. We want to get the tool rest so that our tools will be about the center of the part. Everything's nice and tight. That's tight. We're going to start the lathe at the slowest speed. With the bigger your pieces are, the more critical that is. I think Grizzly recommends 19-inch maximum because of the vibration and stuff. Some of these lathes will have in their manual, for example, this Oliver said you could turn 4 foot in diameter. Well, I wouldn't even try that without having it bolted to the floor, because it just vibrates too much. And the speed is another consideration. If your lathe won't go slow enough, you can see on our readout here, this is as slow as it'll go, 640, 650 RPM. And this piece already being round, there's no vibration, but if you had an outer round piece here, there'd be quite a bit of vibration. Well, you can see I already have this one roughed out, but it's very simple to stand out here and you can see that the wood, even though it's been turned already, has moved. Just about any piece of wood, regardless of how dry it is going to move a little bit, and this one certainly did. Right now I'm just trying to true some of the outer roundness or run out in the bottom. You can see the farther I get from the center, the more hit and miss I have with my tool. As I get closer and closer, now it's cutting the whole way around. And I'm just going to make the bottom flat. Use a straight edge across there, and I can see, you might be able to see a little bit there. And I think that's because I'm not quite cleaned up the whole way around. I'm still got a little bit of a low spot there. Just run her across a time or two more. And for this, the tool I'm using here is a Sorby heavy-duty scraper. It's ground traditionally, not with the negative rake, and I've got it pointed down just a little bit so that it is scraping. The cutting's done with the burr on the end, and it requires sharpening quite frequently. So right now it probably needs sharpened again. But I'm getting to where I'm happy with the surface I've got, and I'm ready to move on to some of the other areas. You can see this ring here is just a little proud of the surface. That's to give it a good solid contact with the table. And I think we're ready to move on to something else. All right. There's one other approach to turning outboard, and that is a lathe that is designed for nothing but outboard turning. That's this VB. It's a dedicated bowl lathe. You can buy it with a bed, but mine does not have a bed. It allows you to turn 3 different diameters. It's got a tailstock, but the tailstock's removable, so you can turn a diameter this big with everything in place, a diameter that comes down here to the tool rest support, or if you want, you can take both these pieces off, and it's pretty much unlimited depending on how far to your floor. And then you would be using the tool rest that we used just a minute ago. So I'm just going to mount a bowl in there, and we're going to use the screw chuck again. I've got a 1/4 inch drill, and hopefully I can get it fairly square. And here's the Glazier screw chuck again. You can see that you could mount against this surface, or it comes with this, which will go either direction. For what we're going to do, might as well have as much support as we can. They come with two pins that you can work it on and off with, or you can use a wrench. Okay, that is fine there. Get that out of the way, and we'll lock the spindle on this lathe. Okay, so I'm just going to lock this spindle. Okay, it is in the lock position right now. This lathe is unique in a couple ways. It does not have roller bearings. It's got bushings and has oil cups. So you got to keep oil in it. We've got it turned on. When you open the lid, the cover on the back, it's got switches that shut off the power. It also shuts off the power if you open this door. This is a piece of red oak. Got a little bit of spalting, which is almost to the point where it's past spalting. Get it good and tight on there. Take the pin out, close the door, and we have three different speed ranges. I'm going to turn the variable speed back as slow as it can. I've got it on the middle belt setting, which gives us between 150 and 1350 on the RPM. And let's see, locks off, and it's got a foot operated switch. You can either use the foot switch or switch it here, doesn't matter. I like using the foot switch. That gets you out of the way in case there's a problem. Okay, that just going to see how well balanced it is. Oh yeah, that's we're starting to get a little vibration. That's probably where we'll run it. Okay. This tool rest extends clear to the floor. Lock it to the floor, and then this knob expands in this opening, makes it tight. Everything is fine. But I am going to get a face shield for the first couple cuts. When you're rounding something that's this rough, it doesn't take long before you have to move your tool rest. I like keeping the tool rest fairly close to the work. And if you can hear the cracks, that's this bark hitting my face shield. I guess we can get rid of most of it. Okay, let's cut a little more. Well, from where I'm seeing, we got some good wood in this blank, but the outer part's going to come off. It's beyond spalting. It's pretty much rotten on the outside of the log, but we'll crank her down, get it a little smaller, and as it gets rounder, we can give her just a little more speed. I think it's pretty easy to see how convenient it is to have the outboard turning option to you. There's none of this leaning over the lathe. We'll be able to turn this. I will put probably use a faceplate or maybe a chuck tenon on the bottom, turn it around, and we will have a bowl in no time. Okay, what I'm doing here, since I've got to give this a break, is I'm putting on a product called Anchor Seal. Anchor Seal's specifically made for coating end grain of wood, either logs or bowls if you're going to let the bowl dry, or in this case I'm going to let this set for a while and I'm not sure when I'll get back to it, so I'm using this. There are other products you can use. Paint works fairly well. Old white glue works good. I've seen where people use cement sealer. Just about anything that's going to slow the evaporation of water or the exit of water from the end grain. Because when that comes out of the end grain, that shrinks. It shrinks more than the rest of the wood, and that's what causes the crack. So hopefully I will get back and finish this bowl before it has a chance to crack.